Around here, there's a bunch of crooks around here.
You ain't supposed to be in that jail, boy. Get out of there, man.
No, that's a total no, man. VAT coming.
Is my salary going up?
Bahamian people gotta wake up.
This is my 5 cents and I approve this message.
A cabinet minister says the FNM is to blame for the U.S. State Department's report, but the United States Embassy outright denies that. The family of a murder victim speaks out, and we've got their emotional story. Plus, credit card fraud on the rise and sex education targeted at the nation's LGBT community. We've got those stories and more coming up tonight. I'm Dana Smith, and NB12 starts right now. Talking news tonight, Minister of Labor and Member of Parliament for Golden Gates, Shane Gibson, today accused the son of a former FNM senator for authoring the U.S. report that criticized the Christie administration for its government's failures. He claimed it steeped in politics. Simone Davis tells us what he and the U.S. Embassy had to say.
Minister of Labor and National Insurance Shane Gibson accused the son of former Free National Movement chairman John Lee Ferguson of writing a controversial U.S. State Department report released last week. Gibson suggested it was politically motivated, telling NB12 he does not know whether the United States government had a part in writing the report, which criticized the government for lack of transparency and undue interference in the awarding of contracts in the Bahamas. He repeatedly insisted that Hank Ferguson, who was the former FNM senator's son, was the author.
I don't know that the U.S. said that. I saw something where it said some Ferguson Bahamian said that. Did the U.S. say that? Did you see the report? And Hank Ferguson is the son of John Lee Ferguson, who's a staunch FNM.
Hank Ferguson is an economic and commercial specialist at the U.S. Embassy. At the end of the report, Ferguson is listed as the contact point at post for public inquiries. When asked if he agrees with the claim that information in the report was garnered by the official opposition, Gibson said that he doesn't agree or disagree, and he is just taking it for what it is.
I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm saying for the public to know, Hank Ferguson, the son of John Lee Ferguson, wrote the report.
When contacted for comment, Ferguson referred NB12 to the U.S. Embassy's public relations officer, Nita Brown. In a statement released this afternoon, the U.S. Embassy said the 2014 Investment Climate Report statement on the Bahamas was prepared by Washington-based diplomats assigned to the embassy in Nassau. The statement continues, non-American staff have limited, if any, role in the preparation of these statements and are not the authors of the statements. Officials also noted that investment climate statements are reviewed in an extensive intragovernmental process in Washington, D.C. Officials made it clear that the role of the locally employed commercial specialist is to facilitate foreign investments from the U.S. to the Bahamas. Reporting for NB12, I'm Simone Davis.
Police today sending out a warning over a rise in cases of credit card fraud and identity theft. Police say so far this year, nearly $100,000 has been lost in unauthorized charges and ATM withdrawals. That's more than double what was reported in the same period last year. Police say thieves can steal information from your card with one swipe at a local shop and then use that information to make copies of credit cards with your information.
Credit card fraud is not new to the Bahamas. We have seen some new trend in the past months where persons were actually now stealing identity, taking persons' identity and being able to manufacture credit cards, which
16 cases of credit card fraud have been reported to police for the first 6 months of this year, amounting to $99,205.99 defrauded from victims. This is compared to the same period last year, which saw 7 cases worth just over $33,000. Police say this is a significant rise. However, authorities say they're not just concerned about fraudsters who use fraudulent credit cards to make purchases on someone else's account. Inspector Deborah Thompson of the Business and Technology Crime Section says a new trend has emerged as it relates to ATM withdrawals.
We also now see a new trend as it relates to the ATM debit cards. We have 2 matters reported so far for the year where individuals or complainants are stating to us that their card was in their possession, custody, and control, but yet withdrawals were being made off their account without their authorization. One of those matters, we know that the withdrawals were made in another jurisdiction, and the cardholder was present here in the Bahamas.
So how exactly are thieves getting your information? Constable Donald Roll of the Business and Technology Crime Section explained credit card information can be stolen when making purchases with your card. He says criminals use an instrument known as a skimming device.
All of the information as it relates to the credit card is actually stored in the magnetic strip of the card. For example, right here on the magnetic strip. Once the information is on that strip, the perpetrator would then have possession of a skimmer. This device, as you can see, is very small. It can be very concealable. The perpetrator would then have possession of your card. They would swipe it, for example, in the skimmer, and all of the information would then be stored in the skimmer. The perpetrator at a later stage would then obtain a blank credit card. No information is on these cards. These cards would then be placed in the skimmer, and the information will then be placed on the new card.
Roll says these cards are then altered to give the appearance of a legitimate credit card. Multiple copies can be made. To avoid becoming a victim of fraud, police are offering several tips to the public, including keeping an eye on your credit card and be aware who you're giving your credit card to. Police note store employees can leave your line of sight with your card and then skim the card. Police also advise you to carefully check for unauthorized charges. Authorities also offered tips to merchants who may be inadvertently accepting fraudulent credit cards and not exercising due diligence by carefully examining the card. Police say employees should be trained to identify valid cards, pay attention to customers who are making high-value purchases, and do not process transactions if the customer has no valid ID. Police also advise merchants to match the name and number on the card with the information printed on the receipt. Inspector Thompson said 19 persons have been arrested in connection with credit card fraud and identity theft, with 16 of those persons charged before the courts. If convicted, they face a maximum penalty of up to 5 years in prison. She confirmed they were all arrested together as part of a ring. In other news, the family of a Defense Force officer murdered more than 2 decades ago is breaking its silence. With the 21st anniversary of Quinton Smith's murder just days away, grieving relatives say they are struggling to cope with his shocking murder in 1993. They also said the fact that no one has ever been charged with his murder is only adding to their agony. Our Jasmine Brown has their emotional story in this report.
I always wonder, why would someone do this to someone who have a newborn? Like, did you ever think of their family? I always wondered what could have been if he was still alive, what my life would have been like, how different it would have been. Just to have a father. It's just the thought of why it happened and who did it. It never got solved. No one ever said anything about it. And it's like, why?
Like the rest of her family, 21-year-old Ashley Smith has many unanswered questions about her father's shocking death. She was just 6 months old and her 20-year-old brother still inside the womb when their father was gunned down. Police say Quinton Smith was killed around 11:10 on the night of July 5, 1993, outside his home on Seabreeze Lane. Smith and another man were reportedly cleaning his car when two gunmen approached them from nearby bushes and opened fire. Smith died from a gunshot wound to the head, while his friend survived the gunshot wounds to the side and hand. Today, the slain Marine's family gathered at his gravesite at the St. Anselm's Church on Bernard Road. His sister, Rogan Smith, says the family is desperately seeking closure.
With my niece and my nephew, I feel like we've been tasked with creating memories for them because Ashley was just 6 months old. I mean, she was held by her father. He loved her. He kissed her and everything. My nephew, of course, wasn't even born yet when his father passed away. But it feels like we are taking pieces of memories and trying to give that to them. That's a tough thing. And sometimes it's very sad because, you know, my niece has so many questions and it's like you can answer up to a certain point, but what do you say after that?
His mother, Illinois Cash Hicken, says that each time relatives hear the story of another young man murdered, they are forced to relive their pain.
Every day it's like it just happened because it's no answer yet. So every day and every time somebody's child, son or daughter gets murdered, it feels like the same thing happening to me again. So it's a really hard thing to deal with. There's been counseling for the children when they were much younger, and now that they're much older, we go to church. Our church is right here at St. Anselm, and everybody try to each day live a life for Christ, and I think that's the answer, living for Christ.
The family insists the pain of losing a murdered loved one more than 20 years ago has not dimmed, but they say one of the hardest part of coping with their loss is not knowing who murdered him.
The family is now asking police to take another look at the murder case.
We have not given up looking for his killer or killers. We still want answers. We love him dearly, even though he's been gone all these years, and I just want my mother and my family to go on and at least know what happened. That's what's most important right now. We're still healing, but we just want some answers.
At one point, I wanted to study forensic science just so I can actually go back and try to solve the case myself, you know, eventually, but maybe I will still end up doing that. But if anyone have anything, any answers, I would love to know. I just need closure.
And they're also asking anyone with information to reach out to police to help heat up this cold case. They add that they hope speaking out now can help new information to surface. But for now, the family just has memories to hold on to.
Even to this day, like, sometimes I remember, like, the smell of his cologne, you know, and just seeing how cool he was and all the preparation of him getting it ready. So it almost was like watching, like, a movie star in a way, you know, and definitely, since that day he died, I always try to live a Christ-filled life and try to be the best and a good example for my family.
We keep all the best memories we had of him, and we just try to stick together, but we do want answers.
Meantime, our news team spoke with Assistant Commissioner of Police Anthony Ferguson, who said any case that has not resulted in charges remains under investigation. He added that police intend to reach out to the family. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Well, police are requesting the public's help in locating a man wanted for murder. 31-year-old Ben Charles of Sunlight Cottage off East Street, also known as John L.A., is wanted for questioning in connection with the murder of Kentley Milford. That murder took place on Odo Corner on May 27th. Charles is described as a dark brown male of slim build, standing at about 5 foot 8 inches to 5 foot 10 inches in height. Police are asking anyone with information about the whereabouts of Charles to call police anonymously at 919 or 328-TIPS.